Hi everyone and welcome to Our Friendly World. My name is Kennedy and today I'll be showing you how to turn any little crochet piece into a hanging garland. For this tutorial, I'll be using my daisy garland crochet pattern. If you want to learn how to make these little daisies, you can check out the links below the video. But this garland making tutorial will work with any crochet shape or applique so that you can learn how to make a garland for any season or occasion. Let's go over the materials you'll need and then we can get started. For this tutorial, you are going to need yarn in the color that you want to use to string your garland together, a crochet hook, scissors, and a tapestry needle, and you'll also need the crochet applique pieces that you want to string together in a garland. I'm going to be using these little daisies crocheted from my daisy garland pattern, but you could use pretty much any small flat crocheted shape. Let's go ahead and get started. Now, one thing that you could do is just slip stitch into the top of your first piece and then do a very tight foundation chain to connect to your next piece, but I'm going to show you how to use an I-cord because this actually gives us a little bit thicker and sturdier string to hold our garland. So to do an I-cord, you're actually going to need 2 strands of yarn. I'm using 2 ends from the same skein of yarn here, so that's totally an option, but if you would prefer to use 2 different skeins of yarn and use 1 end from each, you could do that as well. So I'm going to start by putting these yarn ends together, and I'm going to pull up a loop of them from the top center of my crochet piece. And like I said, I'm using these daisies, but if you're using a different shape, you'll just want to go to the top center of your piece and pull up a loop of both of these strands of yarn that you're working with. And you want to leave a little bit of a yarn tail on both ends. And now to secure this first piece and leave a loop for hanging, I'm just going to take this loop and then my yarn ends and tie a knot with them. So I'm just tying a knot using these loops as one side and then all of my yarn ends as the other side. I'm just going to tighten that right up. And now that leaves a loop here, and this is what you can use to hang your garland. And you can choose to leave this loop as big or as small as you want. And once our yarn is secured to the top of the piece, we're going to begin our I-cord. So you can hold these short yarn ends, just push them out of the way. We're just going to weave those in when we're done. And now you want to spread your yarn out so that one of your working pieces is at the top and one of your working pieces is at the bottom. And now you'll lay your hook horizontally across that knot that we tied at the top of your piece. So your hook is held horizontally, you have one yarn end extending up toward the top and one piece extending down toward the bottom. Now to start your I-cord, you're going to wrap your bottom piece up and around the hook and all the way back down. And then you will wrap the top piece down and around the hook and then all the way back up to its place. And then you're going to pull this first loop through that second loop. And now we're going to do that again. Bottom yarn up and around the hook. Top yarn down and around the hook. And then pull this first loop on the hook, so your top yarn, pull that through both loops on the hook. Now we'll do it again. Bottom yarn up and around, top yarn down and around, pull through both loops. And now you can see this thicker cord beginning to form here. And this is just what you're going to do until you have whatever distance you want between your pieces. So I'm bringing my bottom piece up and around my hook, my top piece down and around my hook, and then pulling this first loop through both loops on the hook. And I'm just going to repeat that until I get some distance here, which is creating the cord that is going to be the string up at the top of my garland. And you can take your time. Once you get the hang of it, it does move a little bit quicker. But you're just going to continue making these I-cord chains until you have enough space here that you're then ready to add your next piece. And now when you lay your I-cord down, you can get an idea of how far you want to go before you attach your next piece. This looks like a good distance for me, so I'm going to attach my next flower here, but first I'm going to count how many stitches I did on my I-cord so that I can keep that consistent all the way across the garland. So the way you count these is the same way you would count a crochet stitch. You're just looking for this horizontal V shape here, and now I'm going to count each of those. And it looks like I have 22 of them. So I just want to remember that number so that I can keep it consistent all the way across my garland. And now to attach your next piece, you're going to just find the top center, put your hook into the top center of your piece, and you're just going to do a slip stitch pulling up both loops of the yarn. So I'm going to pull both loops through my piece and then right through the loop on my hook. And now that next flower is attached, or whatever little shape you're using, and now we can just continue on with our I-cord, bringing the bottom piece over and around, yarning over with the top piece, and pulling through all of the loops on a hook. And now once that slip stitch is made and your next little piece is attached to your garland, you're just going to continue right on with your I-cord, bringing that bottom loop up and around, and then yarning over with your top piece and pulling through all of the loops on the hook. And that's one stitch. So remember, I'm trying to do 22, so now I'm going to keep track. I'm going to bring my bottom piece of yarn up and around, yarn over with my top piece, pull through both loops on the hook. And now I'm going to do that for a total of 22 more chains. And now that I have made my 22 I-cord chains, and you can do whatever number you want, you just want to keep it consistent with whatever that first number you used was. So I made 22 of my chains. Now I'm just going to find the top center of my next piece, do a slip stitch through the top center, so pull those 2 yarn strands through the piece and then through the loop on the hook. And now you're ready to just continue on with your I-cord like we did previously. And like I said, you could choose to just do a tight foundation chain instead of an I-cord, but I find that using the 2 strands of yarn and using this I-cord technique makes your garland a lot more sturdy, and it doesn't stretch out as much, so that as your garland is hanging, it won't stretch so much over time. So now you're going to continue making your I-cord with the same number of stitches in between each piece that you're attaching to your garland. And when you're down to the very last piece that you're adding, I will walk through that with you to show you how to finish it off with this little loop on the other end. So go ahead and attach all of the rest of your pieces to your garland until you have one more left to add. All right, I have strung up all of my little flowers, and now I just have one left to add, so I'm going to show you how to finish off your garland. Again, you're going to just slip stitch into the top of your final piece using both strands of yarn, but now you're going to pull your loop out so that it's about the same length as the loop at the beginning of your garland. So you want those to be about the same size, maybe a little bit bigger, because now you're going to use your yarn tails and your loop to tie a knot, just like we did at the beginning. You're tying this knot, leaving these loop ends so that you're securing the end of your garland and leaving a loop that will help you hang it on a nail or a hook or however you're hanging up your garland. I'm all tangled up here, so I'm going to untangle all of that. And now you're just going to cut your working yarn, leaving a little bit of a yarn end there. And now all we have to do is weave in these little yarn ends. So you're going to use your tapestry needle and thread your yarn ends through. And depending on the colors of your applique, my yarn is the same color as my flower, so I can weave this yarn down through my piece. But if your piece is a different color, I will show you an alternative way to do this as well. So you're going to weave your yarn ends in, make sure you pull them all the way through so that you don't have any little extra pieces sticking out, and then you're just going to trim them off. And if the applique isn't the same color, so you don't want to weave your yarn ends through your piece, I'll show you on the other end here, you can just weave these yarn ends right through the I-cord. You're just going to pull your tapestry needle right through some loops on that I-cord, weaving it in and out. And then when you pull your yarn ends through, you're just going to carefully trim them without cutting your I-cord. And then make sure those little ends are hidden, and you can trim them off a little bit more if you need to. Since we tied a knot, this is pretty secure, but weaving in these yarn ends just gives us that little bit of extra security in case we need to repair it at any time. And just like that, you have learned how to turn any little crochet shape into a beautiful hanging garland to use to decorate your space with your crochet projects. If you have any questions at all, be sure to let us know in the comments below or by reaching out to us, and be sure to hit the subscribe button for more crochet tutorials and patterns. Thanks for watching!